An outstanding educator, a statesman, a 1934 Constitutional Convention delegate, a foremost proponent of ecumenism, and an eloquent preacher, that is Dr. Enrique C. Sobrepena, the first president and founder of Union College of Laguna. Born on the 2nd of March 1899 in Calumbaya, Buang La Union, to a revolutionary soldier, the young Enrique learned to read Ilocano at age 4. He finished primary school as valedictorian of his class and topped an examination for land surveyors when he was only a second-year high school student. With his savings as a government surveyor, Enrique bought a steerage steamship ticket for Seattle, then a train ticket to St. Paul, Minnesota, where he enrolled at Macalester College for a liberal arts degree with the intention of becoming a lawyer. After a great inner struggle, he ended up a ministry student at Princeton Theological Seminary in New Jersey. He was a highly principled young man, a thoroughly self-supporting student in the United States. He gave up jobs when his principles became compromised.
A scholar. Very bright young man that went to the U.S. and he became an orator of the college where he finished his education, and while there they were competing in other colleges and universities in the USA and became that top debater, top person when it comes to oration. That's what I remember. So while at Union College, yeah, other than he is a bishop, remember he was a scholar. He devoted his time for studies and make use of the ability that God had given him. And that was his ability for proclamation. And that's why he went into the ministry because he was a narrator who became known as a speaker, and not only in the Philippines, but in other countries.
Upon his return to the Philippines, he became the pastor of a newly organized congregation, the United Church of Manila in C.M. Recto Avenue. His charisma and preaching style attracted students in what is now called the University Belt. In a couple of years, the congregation of 100 grew to more than 1,000.
Father, he was a very strict person. He was he had a Puritan outlook, and that is coming out of his Presbyterian background as a member of the church. And so we live in that kind of a dimension where we are supposed to know our roles as persons and that we behave accordingly. He was a very moral person, strict and very firm in his values, and that has always carried him through the rest of his life. His stand for education is very constant. He made sure that all of us were fully educated as children. There were 4 of us, and it was his decision to decide, for example, that each of the 4 children should have a profession that reflects educational values. So my eldest brother was trained to be a lawyer, my sister was trained to be a teacher, my brother was trained to be a doctor, and I was trained to be a pastor. So his love for education was very strong because he felt it was the way by which people get to develop their integrity as a human being.
The legacy of Bishop Enrique C. Sobrepena is such that even till this day and age, many will remember. He left a legacy of accomplishment and achievements not a few can equal, whether in the field of religion, education, or politics. He will always be remembered. In the early days of ecumenism, the cry was, in fundamentals, unity. In non-fundamentals, liberty. And everything else, charity. Nobody more fully understood the above insight than Bishop Sobrepena.
Pastor Sobrepena played a significant role in the development and growth of ecumenism in the Philippines. Believing that disseminating the Christian gospel was not to be confined to the pulpit, but also by demonstrating the Christian life in public office. He ran and won in the election as Constitutional Convention delegate in 1934.
He was very much concerned when he first came back that the Protestant churches were so divided. So he was concerned about the unity of the church, and that was always his major concern. So from the very beginning, he started the ecumenical movement when the word ecumenical was not yet even being used. So he worked with all the different kinds of missionary work that has come here with the U.S. government coming in. And so he worked with the Presbyterians, of which he was one, and with the Methodists, with the different smaller groups of Protestant. And he was also very close with the Filipino Independent Church. See, at that time they were divided. There were two groups led by Bishop Isabel de los Reyes, and the other one was Bishop Isabel de los Reyes was the one that was very close to him, and he helped him by having a newsletter which he edited. And later on, when I was baptized, because we normally have a baptism when you are at least 12 years old. When I was baptized in the Christian church, Isabel de los Reyes became my godfather. So, and because of that, he was given the first and only time that the Philippine Independent Church had an honorary bishop, and that was Dr. Enrique. Yes, well, not only was he a bishop of a church, he was not only was he an educator, he was also a soldier in a sense, because he was the first Protestant chaplain of the Philippine Army, and he was in the battle in Bataan, where he received the highest medal, the honor of soldiers, that is the Silver Cross. So that was given to him immediately after the war, and he was very much involved in during the Japanese time. He was also strengthening the Philippine guerrilla force that was against the Japanese. He was imprisoned by the Japanese. He had in Fort Santiago, and so he when Bataan surrendered, he was part of the death march, but he was able to escape that by the help of a number of friends who are members of the church.
Following the Constitutional Convention, he founded the Union College of Manila in 1936 and two barrio high schools in La Union, his home province. He saw, during the Second World War, how many Filipinos compromised their values to survive and in some cases, to acquire wealth and power. His purpose now was to demonstrate the feasibility of his idea of a Christian-oriented but not church-controlled education. Sometime in March 1947, the late Enrique Sobrepena spoke before the graduating class of Laguna High School, now Pedro Guevara Memorial National High School. The event brought about the idea of establishing a college in Santa Cruz, which was primarily encouraged by the then Division Superintendent of Laguna, Mr. Jose C. Aguila, as well as the then principal of the earlier mentioned school, Mr. Demetrio Sugitan. True to his mission of consecrated service, Pastor Sobrepena immediately heeded the call and established not just another school, but a school with purpose, especially built in the service of the people of Santa Cruz and the nearby communities who could not afford tertiary education in Manila.
Yes, he was first he was teaching at the Union Theological Seminary before the Japanese invasion, and it was at the time that they established the first school, which was the Union College of Manila, and it was located in the Ermita area. And so when the Japanese came, he moved all of his books to our parish where we were staying. And then after the war, we found that after the Second World War, he found that there was a lot of need for a education, as some may recall. The high schools are only found in the capital towns, and there were no colleges in the outside of this place. So he was asked by friends of the members of the church and the United Church here to establish a school. And I remember that because I came with him at that time, and I was just about 13, 14 years old. So that was the first time to get to Santa Cruz, Laguna. And he established a school at that time. And he brought all of his books and invited some of his friends who were living around the area, who were teachers and so on. And that became the nucleus for Union College back in 1947.
Come 1949, Union College of Laguna was given full recognition and has then become the first tertiary education institution in the area.
When I was a pastor, newly graduate of the Bible Theological College, and serving the churches and the mining companies, Dr. Sobrepena happens to be visiting the conference, and in that visit I applied for ordination if it is possible. Usually in the United Church of Christ, or EUB, I am an EUB, Evangelical United Brethren, that you have to finish 4 years theological education. But you know what Dr. Sobrepena did? He asked me what is my degree, and I said I have associate in theology at the Bible Theological College in San Fernando, La Union, and at the same time I am an AB holder majoring in social science. And he said, why not? You can be ordained. And so I am very, very fortunate of having Dr. Sobrepena ordain me at Kabayan, Benguet Mountain Province. And part of the reason that Dr. Sobrepena David invited me, I will be the chair of the character education courses. So I handled, other than my major, which is in economics, I handled the life and works of Enrique Sobrepena.
Today, the service of the institution, led by the ideas of liberty, unity, and charity of our late founder, continues for more than 7 decades. From then on, the school has brought about profound changes in the lives of the people of our community through the consecrated service of Enrique Sobrepena.
So, you cannot say that Union College, a small college, yes, small college, but the Bible says it started a mustard seed. If you know what the biblical saying, that mustard seed is the smallest seed. It was planted in Santa Cruz, Laguna, and now still giving the fruits as a result of the students and faculty encounter with the life and work of Sobrepena. Very significant that Union College has done was to introduce the book about the life and works of Sobrepena. And as they are being taught to the students, then it has that influence to them and their families.
Do that is learning is important, but the development of your character is the crucial key to a person's ability to master education. Because education is meaningless if you do not have any values that goes with it, that you do not have the values that are important to a human life, and that their life is considered in terms of doing it because you understand that you are the child of God.
As a minister, soldier, educator, and writer, Enrique Sobrepena lived as an epitome of Christian values. In him, we remember the insight: in necessaris, unitas; in non necessaris, libertas; in utrisque, caritas. In fundamentals, unity; in non-fundamentals, liberty; in everything else, charity.